So tell me, how could you do it again? Liar, liar. Your mouth runs away like your tongue's on fire. You just couldn't let it go. Liar, liar. You sell it so well, but you just
asked me to undress and began taking photographs of us as part of his study, and that's during that period of time is when the occurred.
This case starts with a house renovation. In May of 2007, a young Connecticut couple had purchased their dream home. The home located at 155 Griswold Drive in West Hartford, Connecticut. It came complete with a stone walk-up to the front door and a garage that adjoined the house on the right-hand side. A perfect house to start a family. The couple busied themselves with projects around the house, including finishing the enormous basement. In the spring of 2007, the couple started renovating that basement. They stripped floors and tore out walls. The new homeowners fell upon a bizarre discovery after pulling apart from one wall located at the bottom of the basement stairs. Rolls of film seemed to fall out by the dozen. With every nail that was pulled, more film exploded out. It was like someone had opened a toothpaste tube and stomped on it, slide after slide. Roll after row, the film looked old too. There ended up being over 100 rows and 50,000 slides. Once the homeowner examined the film, he knew this would be a day he would never forget. The images repulsed him. Hello, my name is Holly. Come on into the Murder She Shed for this rarely heard true crime story. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you would like to visit this Southern girl, usually 2 times weekly, right here in my little she shed. Mostly, sometimes I wander around, but mostly I'm in the she shed. Anyway, come join me. We'd love to have you. Before we begin, viewer discretion is advised because this case does involve children. As these images began to pour out of the wall, the homeowner was shocked and disgusted to see that they were of male and female children alone, also in groups in suggestive poses. Others were children in the act of being SI'd. Some were children with objects inserted into their bodies. There were hundreds of different children and hundreds of men depicted with them, SIing them. The homeowner ran up the stairs to the kitchen bathroom, turned on the sink, and stuffed his face under it. He needed to feel clean for a minute. He considered showering and burning his clothes. He was so disgusted with what had inhabited his home. Once he got his bearings, he dialed up 911 and told the West Hartford police that they needed to get to his home immediately to see what he had found. Police knew the home. It had once belonged to a man who was the chief of endocrinology at St. Francis Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut. The man's name was Dr. George Reardon. He had already passed away by the time these films were found. This is a story of a predator that parents were supposed to be able to have trusted. A doctor that saves lives that would end up ruining many lives. Dr. George Reardon was a native New Yorker. Reardon had gone to medical school and done his residency in Albany, New York in the late 1950s. Reardon immediately started essaying children. He had essayed a brother and sister as early as 1959. Once Reardon's training ended in 1964, he moved south to St. Francis Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut. From all outward appearances, Dr. Reardon was a respected endocrinologist who trained many fellow physicians and was involved in legitimate research and publications, or so they thought. Parents immediately started receiving letters from Reardon after he became a doctor at St. Francis. The letters stated that Reardon was conducting growth surveys and needed their children to participate. Dr. Reardon would say the purpose of the study was to measure the growth rates of normal children to assist in the treatment of children with abnormally low rates of growth. Some parents readily agreed to bring their children in to participate in the long-term growth study. Parents would note that many of these appointments would take place after hours, so late that even Reardon's secretary was gone for the night, sometimes even on weekends. Parents were not allowed into the room with the children. They waited outside in a quiet waiting room or left while Dr. Reardon took the children into the examination rooms. The study was approved by the hospital's research committee. and was funded by the St. Francis Hospital Association. According to hospital records, Reardon used this money as well as money from the hospital's endocrinology research and education fund to purchase large quantities of film processing materials, lenses, lighting equipment, an expensive movie camera, and a book entitled The Juvenile Homosexual Experience and Its Effect on Adult. A mother who brought her 8-year-old boy and 10-year-old girl to his office for this study was told by Reardon that his work with them would take time and that she should return in 2 hours to pick them up. After she left, Reardon led the brother and sister into an inner office where he had them undressed. He instructed the children for the study needed to measure their private areas and made the brother and sister touch each other as he took pictures. They were made to see the doctor several more times. Another boy, 12-year-old William, and his 3 brothers were asked to participate in the growth study. He recalls that on one occasion, his mother dropped him and his brothers off at the hospital. Over the course of several hours, Reardon called each boy into an office, which was set up like a photography studio. When it was William's turn, Reardon told him to undress and informed him that part of the study was to excite him in order to measure his growth. He then essayed the young boy. Another victim, Kevin, who was 13 at the time, that he was recruited by Reardon to participate in the study, was dropped off by his mother in the doctor's office. Reardon met him and another boy in the lobby and then escorted them both to his office. For 5 or 6 hours, Reardon took photographs of the 2 boys in various positions. Among other positions, Reardon directed the boys to drape themselves around one another and to engage in simulated acts. Reardon also touched Kevin. When he was done, Reardon drove the boys home. On the way, he stopped at a store and bought each boy a model car. Like that would make up for what he did. Such a sicko. Reardon allegedly had a gun strapped under his lab coat, and the victims alleged he sometimes used it to intimidate them. Mark, who was also a victim of Reardon, he did not admit to his father until he was grown that he had been abused by the doctor. He offered his father an explanation for why he had gone from being a straight-A student to a high school dropout and then a career criminal by finally letting his father know what the doctor had done to him all those years ago. There was many victims that said it affected the rest of their lives. Some of them got into drugs, and some of them just had depression and anxiety so bad it just affected them in so many ways. A few days after Mark had actually told his father about the doctor and what he'd done with him, he was beaten to death, but that had no relation to this case. Another victim stated that Reardon put a mask over his head, photographed him naked, forced him to play with himself, and made him remain naked for long periods so Reardon could obtain gratification. Police have identified over 250 victims by name, but hundreds of other children in the horrible children images, it's a word they don't like to use, but you know what word I'm trying to say, was never identified, sadly. They have said it could have been more than 500 victims that are out there from this man. The began in the 1950s and didn't end until the 80s. St. Francis officials claimed they knew nothing about the and they never received a complaint until one was made to a state agency in the late 1980s. They did not believe the complaint was true, however, and never fired the doctor. In the 80s, it's the first of what would be several civil cases filed against the hospital in relation to Reardon. He resigned in 1993 amid allegations, but he was never charged. In 1995, he was prohibited from practicing medicine in Connecticut or any other state, thank God. But apparently the doctor stashed all his images in the wall of his home, not only to avoid further trouble, but so he could take a peek occasionally if he decided to do so. I guess the evil Dr. Hyde had to reappear at times. The doctor passed away in 1998 of a heart attack without receiving any form of punishment for his behavior. In 2011, St. Francis Hospital was sued by some of the victims. They claimed the hospital knew of the and did not stop it. Of course, St. Francis totally denied that accusation. In 2012, St. Francis reached a settlement with the victims. Due to the statute of limitations in Connecticut at that time, victims could not file claims against the doctor if they were over 48 years of age.
Pete, who only wants to be identified by his first name, says he was 11 or 12 years old when he was in 1968 by Dr. George Reardon, a doctor at St. Francis Hospital. Like many others, he and his 3 brothers were part of what Reardon called a study. Pete's mom dropped the boys off one afternoon. One by one, they were brought into Reardon's office, and what happened after wasn't discussed for more than 30 years.
We were children at the time. I don't think any of us really understood what really happened, and it was just a subject that we never approached with each other.
Pete says he was ashamed, afraid, and confused, but he kept all those feelings bottled up. Then in 2007, nearly a decade after Reardon died, the owner of his former West Hartford home found more than 50,000 slides and 100 movie reels of child hidden in a wall. That's when Pete and his brothers finally talked about what happened and discovered they all had the same horrific experience.
I've been over to the West Hartford police station. I've seen the photographs for myself. I think that I deserve a day in court. I deserve to hear an explanation of why it happened, why there wasn't anything done about this a lot earlier.
All 4 brothers are suing the hospital, but only the youngest brother's lawsuit is certain to go forward. That's because Connecticut law requires victims of child abuse to come forward before the age of 48. Pete is 53.
I don't think it serves any purpose. Crimes of this nature against children should never have a statute of limitations.
So sad for the victims that received no form of compensation for what was done to them. It is also said that the first victims that came forward were not believed by the hospital, and the doctor was able to many more victims after that, and that he died before the photographs were discovered. Dr. George Reardon was able to live his life in peace without any repercussions for what he had done to over 500 children. Thanks for listening to this case today. It is one that is never discussed, and I believe it will bring awareness of realizing that even individuals that have trusted professions and that we sometimes trust cannot be trusted with our most prized possession, our children. I mean, we just got to realize that this world's not always the safest place for little innocent children, and it's sad it's not. Although often they're not victims of a stranger, oftentimes it's the person that actually lives in the home with them. Anyway, guys, that's it. I just wanted to bring this case to light because I didn't see one video about it on YouTube and I happened to come up on it. Anyway, I love y'all and I hope y'all have a blessed week. And here is me and Simon's bloopers. Simon wasn't too funny today. You're just a cuddle bunny today. You're not funny. You're just a cutty bunny. Cutty bunny. A cutty bunny. What's a cutty bunny? You're just a cutty bunny today. Big old 100-pound cutty bunny. You're a good precious boy. A good precious boy. What is it? What do you look worried about today? What are you worried about today? Is it because it's stormy outside? Think it's going to come another big bad tornado? Well, I hope not. I hope it's not going to come a big bad tornado. I don't want another one of those, do you? And me, but that wasn't fun. Our house blew away in a tornado. You can actually watch that video on my channel if you want to go to Murder She Shed. Oh, he's just a cuddle buddy today. He's a dirty cuddle buddy. Mama don't care if you're dirty. Mama loves you anyway. Mama loves you no matter what. Dirty, clean, nice and mean. Hey, around. Jesus loves a little Simon. All the sounds of the world. He's a hip you. Tell him bye. Say bye, y'all. Bye, y'all. Bye, y'all. Bye. We gotta go do some fun now. See you later. Welcome to the Murder She Shed, the place where you can get your true addiction fed. Come on back and let me, I don't know what rhymes with that, give me cred for what I do, my she shed. Wonderful. My rhyming's amazing. Projects around the house, including rewind. Anyway, come join me. We'd love to have you. I promise I won't bite. Well, at least usually. I am turning a German Shepherd though, since I'm around a German Shepherd so much, but so far, I don't bite. Well, unless you want me to. Might then. You never know, I get kind of sassy sometimes. Southern sassy comes out. But most of the time, me and my German Shepherd won't bite. Most of the time. That bird's messing me up again. Dang bird. Tell him bye. Say bye, y'all.
So tell me, how could you do it again? Liar, liar. Your mouth runs away like your tongue's on fire. You just couldn't let it go.